And we are live with the final office hours of 2020. Thank you everyone for joining. Alex, how you doing this week?
Good as usual. How about yourself?
Also good. It's been a pretty interesting past week. Some new project launches, lots to dive into today.
Yeah.
Before we start diving into the dashboards, how you feeling about the kind of final month of 2020, and how are you feeling about going into 2021?
Feeling good. It's been an eventful year. I think it's been difficult for a lot of people, but really good for a lot of people in crypto. So I think 2021 is going to be maybe better for both camps. Good for crypto and good for the rest of the world.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really good year.
yeah, fingers crossed, certainly. Um, all right, well let's dive right in. So I think one of the probably most talked about events in the past week was the 1 inch token launch, which occurred on Christmas Eve. Everyone was pretty surprised, I guess, that they launched on Christmas Eve. But it was a nice little Christmas present to anyone who had been trading on 1 inch and received their airdrop. So maybe we can pull up the Token God Mode dashboard and poke around there a bit and see what was going on. And you also did a longer analysis and video on that, which people can see on our YouTube channel. At You can just find that through nansen.ai/YouTube. But let's dive right in on the data around 1 inch.
Yeah, so I think that the video is a good, definitely a good place to have a look for anyone interested in 1 inch. I'm being like half attacked by my cat here on the side, so I'll try to I'll try to
Bring them on screen.
stay on track. Let's see if he can make a little appearance here. Here he is. He didn't get any 1 inch tokens, unfortunately, but he got another nice present for Christmas. So all right, so 1 inch. So I don't think we have to go too much into details, but I think the breakdown in this video was quite good. People liked it. So maybe we can look at a couple of things here. First of all, 1inch as an exchange now appears because they have sort of moved on from the Mooniswap brand to kind of the 1inch V2. So that's reflected in the top exchanges where you can see 1inch tokens being deposited into their pools. So that's one thing that's new. And then maybe the other thing to look at is the top balances. So that's also the thing that I use as a kind of the stem of the analysis in that video. So you can see the multisig, which sent out a bunch of tokens, most notably to the distributor, which is where people claimed their tokens that they received on Christmas Eve. And so 90 million tokens went into the distributor, and 73 million tokens have been sent out from the distributor, which means they've been claimed by users. So there's still about 17 million tokens up for grabs. Um, but this so that's one thing, one observation that you can see right away from the pool from this table, and then you can see the pools that are here, and these are the 1inch pools where people are providing liquidity on different pairs. So 1inch ETH, 1inch wrap Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. So these are still where you have a lot of the 1inch tokens, I think for two reasons. Number one, obviously, it's the liquidity itself. But number two, they've also been packed with 1inch rewards. No, actually, no, that's not true. Now that I'm saying it, I remember that actually you have separate addresses that hold the rewards, which are these farms down here. So this is straight up liquidity. Like these pools up here just hold 1inch against Ether, against Wrapped Bitcoin, USDT, and so on. So there's a bunch of 1inch tokens there. There's still 1inch tokens up for from the farms. So it looks like the DAI farm still has the most tokens left in it, which means it's it's got the highest balance, which means there's been the lowest amount of claims on that. Could be that someone has still farmed a lot, they just haven't claimed it yet. That's not really reflected
Can
here.
you scroll down a bit? It's just hidden behind the pips.
Here we go. Can you see it now? This one?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff you can do from here. So again, I won't spend too much time on this, but you can look at, for example, who received tokens from the distributor by scrolling to the right and clicking recipients. And so that's going to show you who are all the addresses that received tokens from the distributor. Um, and you can do the inverse with these as well. You can see who deposited funds. And so, for example, who deposited funds into the governance contract. And this has actually changed quite a bit since I did the video. When I did the video, it was much lower. So there's been a big influx of 1inch tokens to the governance contract. And so I'm going to just bring this up, here. If I click depositors, that's going to show that one. But you can see these are the people that receive tokens from the distributor. The biggest one is Token Millionaire. This one here. I know there was some controversy about the 1inch team receiving tokens as well. I don't know if that was this wallet or if it was a different wallet. I would hope it's not the biggest recipient of tokens. That would be a bit strange. But you can see Smart LPs, obviously, that made a decent amount of 1inch tokens from providing liquidity. And if we go over to the governance contract, you can see which ones have deposited funds into the governance contract. So you see, this is kind of interesting. You see an Argent account that deposited tons of tokens here. In the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tokens. You see a couple of ETH names or ENS names, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you can go really nuts with this by just digging into depositors, withdrawers, or recipients from all these different addresses. It's a really great place to just explore what's been going on with the 1inch token.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made a good point earlier, which is this is the top balances table on Token God mode is really the stem for a lot of analyses, and not just for 1inch, but really any token you want to dive deeper on. We've obviously looked at a lot in the past, and we always or like in past office hours, and we always seem to come back to this top balances table and
Yep.
use this as a kind of to the top of the rabbit hole to dive into the top depositors, top recipients, to look at liquidity providers and liquidity pools, and governance participants, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So very often when I'm like, hey, how do I find that address? Or there's some kind of angle where I can use Token God mode to just find that address very often. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm looking for like a distributor of the tokens, or if I'm looking for some like farm, very often I can just use Token God mode, and you can sort these columns as well, right? So you can look at who are the top recipients of tokens, right? Not necessarily the balances, and you can look at the top changes in 30 days and 7 days, and so on. So you can use this table as well for a lot of different things. It's, yeah, as you say, it's really the best place to start whenever you're doing some token investigations.
Yeah, and now transitioning on to our next little investigation here, another project that was recently launched, in fact, was just launched yesterday, was Mithril Cash, and
Mm,
that within the first few hours, I think was had attracted uh, over a couple hundred million in liquidity.
yeah,
Um, Staked into the various different into the various different farms. This is truly like the epitome of an industrial farm. Uh, we haven't seen something like this since probably Sushi Swap's launch. So everyone has aped into this one, and yeah, let's dive in.
yeah. So again, we're back at Token God mode. This time we use MIC, which is the symbol for at least one of the tokens associated with this project. And honestly, I've not really looked at this much yet myself. But I woke up to a lot of people who had made a lot of money on this. So you can see the top farms here because they actually hold the MIC tokens that are distributed and can be claimed from farmers, as far as I understand. And so here as well, you could look at, who are the top claimers of these tokens. So Cream appears to still have the most tokens in it. Myth has the fewest amount of tokens still yet, so the most amount of unclaimed tokens. Any of these you want to look at, Daniel? What do you think we should dig into to see who's been claiming MIC tokens?
Um, Good question. Maybe we can do the myth one. And
This one, yeah.
yeah, I think the reason why it'd be potentially interesting to look at is I know some people who are putting on a myth trade. Myth is kind of like Mithril is kind of a a token of a previous era of kind of like one of these legacy ICO coins. And I know some people who put on a myth trade yesterday in advance of these farms opening up with the kind of idea that myth would be one of the more incentivized pools potentially, or there'd be less interest in staking in myth. So they just put on a trade on Binance with the idea that once myth launched and the APY of that pool was higher, people would be buying it to stake it in here, and that would pump the price up.
Yep.
So
Did it
yeah,
work?
some yeah, I think the people that I know who put on that trade, they got out pretty after a pretty conservative pump. Like it wasn't they weren't looking for like 2 3 X's, but the coin had already gone up like 100% in the past week. So
Yeah.
there's it's unlikely that the news of Mithril Cash wasn't at least somewhat spread a little bit.
So that's basically the Yam trade. That's what people
Uh,
did with Yam as well. When you
Kind of,
had these one-sided farms, or like one collateral, one asset farms,
yeah.
where you could just deposit like comp or maker, and you would farm Yam from doing it, and basically all the underlying tokens pumped because of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's certainly true. The single asset staking is like the most attractive way of yield farming, just because you don't have as much directional risk. You can borrow it for some of these assets. So I know some people who have like large amounts of stable coins, for example. They would put them in Aave, borrow out some of these like less attractive assets, so that they're not really taking directional risk, and then just stake those
Mm,
so they can get in the higher risk pools, but not actually take directional risk on the asset.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, I guess you could get liquidated if it really pumps because you're
well,
borrowing it.
no, you wouldn't get liquidated because your collateral is a stable coin.
Yeah, but
Eh,
if the token pumps, but stablecoin is your, I mean, it depends how what ratio you're having, right? But if you borrow 100, let's say you have $100,000 of USDC locked up in Aave as collateral,
mhm.
and then you borrow like $50,000 worth of some shitcoin,
Yeah,
and then said shitcoin really pumps to the point where it crosses the 100,000, like the value of that what you borrowed is higher than a, well, actually it's before that it would hit some liquidation threshold. Let's say it's $75,000, and then you could get your 100,000 USDC liquidated, right? Because your loan
um,
is too big.
hmm.
So let's say you have 100,000 USDC. You're borrowing, let's say, $50,000 worth of SNX or something, and if SNX pumps 50% in a day, you know, and it goes to 75,000, you now have $75,000 debt,
Right.
but $100,000 of collateral. So I think this is one reason why people have started or often use Bitcoin as the collateral, because it's almost the safest form of collateral. It's harder to pump against Bitcoin and to pump against USDC.
Yeah, I guess that is true, but in this situation, as long as you're kind of monitoring your health factor on
Yeah,
Aave,
yeah,
you have less of a risk of getting liquidated from not having enough money to pay it back. It's more
yeah,
like you just need to shuffle around assets to keep that collateral ratio good, because you're not actually like when you're
yeah.
staking this asset that you've borrowed, you still have that full. value. Um, like you still
That's
own
right. As long as you're
that
monitoring,
asset.
that's right. Right,
Yeah,
right, right. I see what you mean. It's different from like shorting it, for example, right? And
yeah, yeah.
you
That
would have to
yes,
buy it
exactly.
back at a higher price. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a as long as you're monitoring, it's fine. You could still get liquidated though if you're like, you're fast asleep and then suddenly it pumps while you're asleep. So
Yeah,
I guess that's why like it's still something to be conscious of. But yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely less risk than if you borrow it, sell it off, effectively short selling it, and then you
yeah.
have to buy it back at a higher price.
This whole Mithril Cash pool kind of reminds me more of Sake Swap, which I think was launched by the Eon team. Was it Sake Swap?
Hmm.
I think it was. And Elf. That's what it was. Elf.
Oh
Whatever
yeah,
the one
yeah.
the
That
one with
was
Elf.
sashimi swap, right? I
Sashimi
think.
swap. That's what
Yeah.
I can't even remember all these different
Yeah.
pools. But yeah, they basically like they created exit liquidity for themselves, or this is speculation, but they somewhat created exit liquidity for themselves by incentivizing these pools, pumping
Yep.
their token, and then exiting. Maybe hard
Yeah.
to say.
I mean that's the pool two meme, right?
Yeah.
Where you have the farmed asset itself against Ether or USDC or something like that,
Hmm.
which is very attractive in APY terms. But yeah, you're getting dumped on if it's a shit
Yeah.
token.
Yeah. In other words, be careful out there, folks.
Yeah.
So let's poke around on this dashboard here a little bit. So we've got Wi-Fi Maxi popping out as a
Yep.
smart money uh, player on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, you can drill down. So just to, we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but now we're looking at who's been claiming MIC or MIC tokens from this myth.cash farm. So we found that Wi-Fi maxi.eth, which is a smart money address, which this little icon symbolizes. Might be difficult to see on my screen, but it's a little emoji with glasses. So they've claimed 27 MIC tokens. They've done that. Yeah, actually, they've claimed 5 times. So the transactions in refers to how many transactions have gone into this wallet. So it's 5.
Mhm.
And now I just drill down into their wallet, the wallet profiler for the MIC token, and you can see that what they've. The question is now, what have they done with the MIC tokens? Did they dump them? Did they maybe stake them somewhere else? What did they actually do? And it looks like the largest outgoing transactions went into this other farm, namely the MIC against USDT liquidity pool. And so the question is now, did they sell or did they provide liquidity? We can check that by just clicking through, and it looks like they sold in this case. Am I reading that correct? So the MIC token goes
Yeah.
there, and then yeah. So there was no LP token issued here, so that indicates that they actually sold, right? Um, and is it the same with this other one? Yeah, looks like they also sold here. And then maybe let's check the last one here. They also sold. So they were basically farming and dumping this token against USDT.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it went against the USDT pool, but it looks like they got Bitcoin out at the end. It just was routed through different sushi swap pools, but they got Bitcoin out in the end, it looks like.
Yeah.
So they were dumping for
Um,
Bitcoin. Yeah.
yeah. What on the topic, or from what we were talking about earlier, of people monitoring their health factor and making sure they don't get liquidated. I think another thing that people frequently do is they'll sell their farming rewards immediately, or at least pretty quickly after they've accumulated enough, and they'll start paying back the loan or
Mm,
whatever loans they have, or adding more collateral onto
mm.
Aave, just so that they keep their health factor in check as they're farming.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, another thing we can see right away from this wallet profiler is that they've been farming from other farms too. They've not just been farming the Myth farm. They've also farmed the Binance USD BUSD farm, Ave, and yeah, it looks like those three. Actually, we can see incoming addresses three. So yeah, those are the three farms that they've been farming from. So
Yeah.
right away, we know what YFI Maxi has been farming from to get their mic tokens, and we see that they've been basically farming and dumping. All of it's been dumped in the sushi swap pool.
I feel like I might know who this is just because I was talking to them yesterday and they were talking about the different pools that they're participating in.
Okay.
We'll chat about it.
Well,
We'll chat about it offline.
it's a small world, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I also have a feeling I know who this might be, but okay. Should
We'll
we look at
swap
the
notes.
top one just to see what? Because it's
Yeah, let's
always
do
good
it.
to know what the whale has been doing. So they've farmed like 284. They have no label, so they might have just created this address to specifically farm. Maybe they want to go under the radar for some reason. Um, they first received at 2:33 a.m. UTC, so I guess that was shortly after they launched this. I'm going to go down at the very bottom to just see, okay, they received all their tokens from this and they sent it there. So seems like it's a pretty simple strategy. They've been farming the myth pool. Maybe this is like an insider or something. Been getting mic tokens from the myth farm and then they've been selling it to, well, actually, let's see if they sold or provided liquidity. Do the same thing again. Yeah, looks like they dumped for Tether,
Yeah. I would
12,000
also
USD. Yeah,
I'd
go
also be
ahead.
curious after this to pull up their address just in the normal wallet profiler, just to see
Mm-hmm.
like because this looks like a new wallet, and
Yeah, let's look at it.
we'd likely see that they've just received Myth probably like yesterday or something, and
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see if they got it from an exchange or from
yeah.
some early Mithril team wallet or something like that.
By the way, the I know we were asked about this last time. We should have a button to jump between the two, and so we don't yet have that. But the way I normally jump between wallet profiles is I just have a shortcut WP, and I click space, and then it does that. So I just have to paste in the address, and you can set this up with custom search engines in Chrome. So that's I like to just grab the address, do WP, hit enter, and it's gonna load the wallet profiler for that address. Let's see. Okay, activity. This is normally like a bunch of bars because it's your activity over time. They only have transactions today. So it was literally created today. They received 3 Ether from Binance. They've not sent that ETH anywhere, so it was probably just going to be used for gas. And they've been receiving tokens from, let's see, token transactions incoming from this myth pool or farm, and they've sent tokens there, and they've received some from the zero address, which indicates they might have been doing some uh, LPing as well. So maybe yeah, we can look into that later. But
What?
basically, to answer your question though, like I mean, did they actually create this just to farm? It looks like it to me,
Yeah.
and it was funded from Binance. So it's probably, some whale that. Um, oh, actually, we could look at the myth token too, or like where did they get the myth tokens from? The only thing is I'm not sure we have this in our whitelist yet. We can have a look though. So let's just do the same view, but let's do the myth token. It might not work because I'm not sure it's in our whitelist because this token was kind of it's not a very popular token up to this point.
No, we don't have it in the whitelist. I just checked on Token God
Okay.
mode.
Yeah, then it won't show. Okay, fair enough. We can add that to the whitelist, and then people can investigate where did they get their myth from.
Yeah.
Guessing also Binance, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you can do the same, like similar conceptually. It's quite similar to what we're doing with 1inch. You start in token god mode. You can drill down into any of these farms. You can understand like who are the top recipients of farming rewards or farming yields. and then you can drill down into what they're doing with their tokens, and you can also try to understand if they were funded by other known entities or if they just pulled some ether from an exchange, which we saw in this case. So yeah, it just gives you much more clarity on like what's going on with these farms right away. I've literally like we've never looked at this one before, but already we kind of understand. Okay, this is a major player, and they basically just created this address to farm this token, and they're basically dumping it, but it looks like they're also LPing it to some
Yeah.
extent.
Um, just thinking out loud here, I'd be curious to see on our Aave dashboard if the utilization rates of all these pools has increased over the last 24 hours, with kind of
Yeah,
the thesis that um, everyone is borrowing different tokens to stuff them into these different uh, farms.
yeah, that's a good question. Let's load this up and have a look. So, well, that's the staking. We don't need to see that. I think these ones are actually the slowest to load at the bottom. Well, okay, there's Ether. Looks like Ether had an influx of liquidity. Maybe because of the thing we just talked about earlier, that
Yeah,
they're going to
that
use
makes
Ether
sense.
for collateral, right?
Yeah.
And do you know, yeah, you know which assets. So BUSD indeed like went from 73% to 86% today.
Hmm.
So that's an increase. SUSD went from 80 to 91%. DAI went from 63 to 77. I mean, some of these were like kind of on an upwards trend already. USDC went from 87 to 94%. So I think that thesis is correct. I mean, you could argue that there seemed to be. Oh, look at Wi-Fi though,
Yeah.
22% to 49%. Basically, more than doubling the utilization. So that was a good hypothesis. I think we can say that that seems to have been the case for many of these assets. And you can also see the assets that were not uh, farm uh, assets that you could use to farm this. Like, I don't think 0x was one of the tokens, right? So that stayed flat.
Uh, I'm not sure actually.
That's
It's interesting also that like WBTC increased in liquidity, not in
yep.
utilization, but in
Be,
liquidity.
exactly because of that thing we discussed earlier, right? They're doing your strategy, and I guess my objection was that people tend to do this with BTC or ETH because they are more correlated with the underlying assets,
Yeah,
right? So there's a
I
less
think
chance of being liquidated.
another note is so on the topic of being liquidated. So it does seem like people are using or pulling out the stable coins more. Um, so
Yeah.
maybe they're actually like staking YFI and then pulling out a stable coin. I think something like SUSD. I can't remember what farm it was. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there was one kind of industrial farm, maybe it was SushiSwap, where the price of SUSD, which should theoretically be around $1,
Mm.
ended up trading around I think like $1.16 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, like in addition to using that SUSD to farm, you can really like you can borrow SUSD before the farm launches, stake it immediately. Price pumps to 260 or 116. I think yesterday it went up to like I'm actually not sure, but I remember checking at one point it was like 106 at least. And then
Wow.
you can just sell when it's up, and it's effectively a short at that point because you've borrowed SUSD and you've sold it at like 116. But
Mm.
the idea with that play is you expect SUSD to revert to $1 at some point. So it
Yeah.
makes sense or like it makes sense to sell SUSD at any price above $1
Yeah.
if you if
Yeah.
you if you can hold like if you can kind of keep that trade on long enough, it'll eventually revert back to one.
Yeah. That's kind of like back in the day. That was the way stablecoins worked. But like with these algorithmic stablecoins, doesn't seem to be true anymore. Um,
Yeah,
it's like people are making bets that it's just going to continue pumping.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it is true. That's also how DAI is expected to work, right? Whenever it's at a premium, people are expected to just borrow it or mint it through MakerDAO and just dump it on exchanges because they're you expect that it would revert to $1 at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, all right. So I think we can move on from Mithril Cache, although I'm actually this has been a pretty interesting exploration. I hadn't
Yeah, we can you can
I don't
keep
think either of us
digging
had
offline.
done this before. So
Yeah.
but next, I'll give you the option. We can either go into quickly going over the cover hack, or
Mm.
we can, since we're talking about algorithmic stablecoins, we can quickly take a peek at maybe ESD or DSD. Your call.
Yeah, let's look at ESD then. Let's see if I can find the right tab. There we go. So the, there was just one thing we wanted to look at here, I think, and it's this thing that basically, what are people doing with their ESDs? Well, mostly they're being put in this ESDS contract, um, but you can see actually 6.5% of the supply is now in this myth.cash project. So a lot of these ESD tokens went into that contract, which maybe makes sense because I think myth.cash is also, I mean, it's like a fork of Basis, right? Which is another algorithmic stablecoin. So I guess these, algorithmic stablecoin connoisseurs, they're keeping an eye on what's happening, and many of them just saw an opportunity here to start yield farming at scale using ESD. So yeah, so that was just an observation I think we made a bit earlier that we wanted to cover. But there's obviously a lot of stuff you can look at with ESD as well in this dashboard.
Yeah. All right. Now let's pull up cover,
Yeah,
and we took a quick peek at this right before
yeah,
the call, and
yeah. So
cover.
so
Yeah.
we,
Go ahead.
yeah, we should just mention that probably people know that basically cover suffered a hack or an exploit this week, and the data looks kind of funny in our dashboard because someone minted an obscene amount of tokens to actually save the funds and save the liquidity. So it looks kind of funny, but I guess you can sort of see some of the stuff that took place. Um, Maybe a good place to start is just I'd say looking at the largest transactions here. So first of all, the GRAP finance, or I don't know if you pronounce it grape or grap. I think there's a grape logo, but
Tomato,
it's called
tomato.
grap. So who knows? This is the epic save where the grap finance deployer figures out that they can mint, I guess, the maximum amount of tokens possible or something like that, in order to basically get to dump them into the SushiSwap pool to save the ether that was there. Either it's SushiSwap or Uniswap pool. I'm not actually sure. I think it's the SushiSwap pool because I guess this is what you might see here. So without going into too much details, you can kind of like see some of the events that unfolded. You see the cover hacker here um, sending tokens to this 1-inch router. That's where they dumped the tokens that they had minted. And I think you should be able to see the mint itself as, yeah, here, that's one mint. So they were minting incrementally. So they minted, this is the largest mint that they made, and it's coming from the 0 address, which is where typically tokens are minted from. So there's more than 3,000 tokens going from the 0 address into the cover hacker. And they did this, a couple of times before just dumping them on the 1-inch exchange DEX aggregator. And there's also another address, CoverHacker2, that did a similar thing around the same time. So you could also drill down into the CoverHacker and look at just their wallet profile, and you will see what they were doing. That's pretty easy to do actually. But yeah, I don't think we're going to do that right now.
Okay.
So there's actually a really good post by Rect that you can read about this, and they actually used a lot of the Nansen dashboards in doing their analysis.
Yeah. And actually, just a quick plug, since it's still going on, we partnered with our friends over at Rect for a little Christmas promotion. So if you go to nansen.ai/rectmas, or click on this little Christmas frog. We have a little promotion there for
Yeah.
anyone who
You
wants
can
to
also
get
go to
a
Rec News and click.
yeah
Yes. You can also go to rec.news and just click the frog with the Santa Claus hat or whatever it is,
yeah.
and it takes you to
Um,
this.
can you go back to the transaction from the I guess it's
This one?
the Grap Finance one, and pull it up on Etherscan real quick?
Oh yeah, because you want to look at the text, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, so maybe not that one, but this one, I think. Mm-mm-mm. No, I might be looking at the wrong transaction.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a little Easter egg, the when the Grap Finance
Oh yeah.
fixed
Sorry.
it,
Yeah,
they left
I know where it is.
a little note in the input data which said, "Next time, take care of your own shit," which was
Yeah.
a fairly heavily memed statement.
Yep. I think that was actually not in these transactions. It was when they returned the funds, the ether.
Uh, okay, yeah,
So I'm not sure we'll find that, but I mean, you could dig through it and find it, or you could just look at this address to find that as well.
yeah,
But it might be one of the large transactions. Do you remember how much it was roughly? Or
not off the top of my head.
I guess it was a
Um,
fair amount, right?
yeah, maybe as a next step here, we can also quickly pull up the token God mode custom for Grap Finance. I don't think we actually track that one specifically, but
Yeah, we can do that.
shortly after I think you'll have to pull it up on Etherscan or on
Yeah, I can look at the Graph
Coin.
Finance deployer. I would guess they actually hold some Graph Finance.
Oh yeah,
Here we
perfect.
go. So that's the token.
Yeah, so shortly after this recovery happened, Grab Grab Coin pumped pretty heavily.
Mm. And you could have gone into token God mode custom to plug in the token address for Graph to basically see what's going on with Graph. So we're doing that now.
It was
35%.
pretty it was pretty impressive how quickly people reacted to this whole cover uh, hack. I mean, the urine team was pretty quick to react. It was a pretty impressive white hat reaction to the hack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of smart people in this space. Who knows? Who knows what went on behind the scenes there? But
Mhm.
definitely, we're fortunate to have a lot of brilliant people working in this space.
Yeah,
So, what did you want to check? Do you want to check price or
just
well?
maybe
Wow, this
Tom.
is this is pretty good. People holding Grap jumped from like 1100 to 1400 on that. I guess shortly after.
Yeah, and the other thing I guess is in the cohort or the hodler segments chart there.
Oh
Um,
yeah, nice.
just
That's a
yeah,
good one.
a lot. Or whatever,
A lot
twenty-one
of new.
percent of the addresses are were just from the last week.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. That shows that doing the right thing is good marketing.
Yeah, this this chart is like bag holders and punters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny.
All right, well let's transition onto the next part here. On the topic of exploits or hacks. We recently had a research piece that we worked with Weiji Co on, and
Yep.
he had previously done a great piece on which hack was it again?
So many now. I can't even
Yeah.
remember.
Anyways, it was
Um,
using Tornado Cache, and so kind of from that we started working with him, and he did a great deep dive into arbitrage on dexes. And yeah, so if you go to research.nansen.ai, you can find that. Any comments on that?
I think it's really well written. That's one thing I would comment on because it kind of the title or implies that it might be very technical, but it's actually a really good read, even if you don't know that much about dexes, front running, arbitrage. They even explain kind of the concept of arbitrage and how prices change on different exchanges. So it's really good. It's a really good read. I highly recommend everyone to take 10-15 minutes to read through it. It's a really good read, and it makes really good use of these wallet profiler dashboards as well that we have in Nansen, and it has links to them as well. So you can see a dashboard here that shows one of these arbitrage contracts, and then there's a link to it, so you can bring up the exact same dashboard in Nansen.
Yeah. Okay. And next topic is the White Heart token.
Yeah, so this I wanted to talk a bit about this because I found it very interesting to see how some of our customers used Nansen to make a decision on whether or not to participate in the initial bond curve offering of White. So let me just jump right to the dashboard that actually we're interested in. I'm
And
going to
and
take it.
for context, this is the token god mode dashboard for
Yeah,
White.
yes, that's right. So, well, where to start? Well, this is the contract that I want to look at, White Heart initial offering. This should be clickable. We can't do that in the current version of the UI, but we're going to change that in Nansen 2.0. So for now, I'm just going to do a little detour and just grab it from the transaction. And I'm going to use that little trick that I just showed you earlier, WP, paste in the address. And this is going to bring up the wallet profiler for this contract. And so I'm going to explain a bit why people are looking at this and how you could use it for similar scenarios in the future. In brief, the way you could participate in this, it was effectively an ICO, but they call it an initial bonding curve offering to make it a little bit different. Also because the pricing is set through a bonding curve, so it is also different. But it was kind of reminiscent to 2017 when people were just sending Ether to random addresses, hoping to get tokens back. And now, at least it was a smart contract, so you could theoretically read the contract and verify that it does what people were claiming that it did. The thing that was a bit unusual was that the information on how to participate was restricted to, I think, I don't know if it was a key-based group, but a little chat, basically. And of course, information started leaking out of that group because this is crypto. And so people had to make a decision, should I trust this information and send Ether to this contract or should I, sit it out? So what many were doing was that they used the wallet profiler on the contract itself to figure out who else had been depositing Ether into this contract. So the reasoning being that, well, if this is a scam, it's unlikely that I will see, lots of, say, high-profile names or addresses depositing Ether into it, because that means they will have been scammed as well, which seems, a little less likely. And so right now, you can see that there are 584 addresses that interacted with this contract. That just means that they either received Ether or tokens or sent Ether or tokens to, or even executed a transaction on the contract itself somehow. But if we sort by ETH volume in, you can see, people that sent Ether to this contract. And in fact, there is a large one here, 849, which sent 849 Ether into the contract. And they did it in over 3 separate transactions. And you could click through. You could be like, hey, Harshk, or however you pronounce it. Nansen.eth deposited 110 ether. Anthony Gossage, who is a smart money wallet, deposited 100 ether. Bank VTB.eth, like, I don't know who these people are. James Jean, yeah, I don't know who they are, but you might have been following them on Nansen before, and you might say, hey, I trust their judgment. Uh, if I get wrecked, they will get wrecked as well. So I'm happy to take this chance. And so you could click through this and actually see who are the addresses that deposited Ether into this contract. I think one extreme case would have been, if there's like a handful of random addresses that deposited small amounts of Ether into it, perhaps that would have indicated that it's a scam. The information you received on Telegram from some person about this IBCO was not legit. But you saw hundreds of addresses here, many of them sending large amounts, some of them even having smart money labels, and many of them could be associated with an ENS name and so on and so forth. So people
Yeah.
basically made the decision to ape into this IBCO. And indeed, there was no scam. The tokens were claimable as promised. And you could actually bring this up to see many of those contracts claiming their white tokens as well. So I'm just going to
It
bring up the wallet profiler for white on the same
While that
address.
loads, this seems like an important time to remind everyone that everything we say here is not financial advice. So
100%.
if you're planning on aping into
Yeah,
obscure contracts, be careful, do your own research, and
yeah,
this is yeah. Someone in the
100%.
chat just said too late, went all in. Well, it
Yeah,
was not a bad decision in retrospect, so kudos.
yeah, yeah. So 100%. Yes, that is definitely something that you have to be careful with. I mean, doing anything in crypto, aping into anything, you always have to be very careful and basically expect that you can lose all your money.
Yeah,
At the same time, I mean, I do think it is fair to say that you know there is a scale of risk, and so to the extent that you can mitigate your risk, you should do it. And using heuristics like the one we just described might be one way to mitigate risk. It's not a guarantee that you won't get wrecked, but it might help you in some cases, and that's what we hope that you will be able to achieve with Nansen. Okay, so you can actually look at the wallet profiler on the white token for that same contract, and you can see people claiming their tokens from it. So this is where they got funded. This should probably be labeled better, but it's labeled as an ETH millionaire. That's where the 8,000 tokens came from. The white heart deployer, basically, is what it should be labeled as. And then you have all these addresses claiming their white tokens from that. So 560 addresses minus the deployer. So 559 addresses claiming white tokens. And
yeah,
actually, it's interesting because you can see there's only 34 tokens left to be claimed. Most of them were claimed very fast because I think it has a 7-day limit. After 7 days, you won't be able to claim anymore. So I think that's one reason why they were claimed so quickly.
um, one other way you could visualize this would also be with the recipients,
Yes,
uh, top recipients dashboard. I don't know if we
yes,
need to necessarily pull it up, but just for people to know, or I
yeah,
guess maybe on the top transactions you would see that address or
yeah.
something like that.
So now I just sorted by received because it
Okay,
has a
okay,
pretty low balance now. So it won't show high up when you sort by balance, right? If you have sorted by balance, you don't see it. It's pretty far down the list. But if you click received, you see it here. It received 8,000. So it's the second biggest recipient of tokens. And now I've got that white heart initial offering, and I can go over here and I can click recipients, and indeed that's going to show uh, who has received tokens from this address. So it's just a slightly different way of looking at it than the wallet profiler. Let's see. It's going to show just a list of addresses that received tokens. Yeah, here we go. And then you could drill down and see what they actually did with the tokens, like we did before.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm kind of curious. I'm wondering what, for example, the top investor did. Did they just flip? Did they hold? Provide liquidity? I
Yeah.
guess we could find out real
I
quick.
guess another thing too, from that dashboard that you could probably check is the wallet profiler for hedgic.eth,
Hmm.
because uh, some smart uh, scammers could theoretically have created an ENS address for something related to hedgic just to make it seem like it's legitimate. Um, and
Yeah,
through the wallet profiler, you could drill down and check when hedgic.eth was actually created and if they actually are a legitimate wallet. Maybe not necessarily wallet profiler for a token, but just the vanilla wallet profiler.
right. Yes. Yeah, you could definitely do that. I think I want to look at what the top one did though. It
Sure.
looks like they received them at sorry, 12:22 p.m. and then about 9 hours later they sent it to another address. Yeah, I'm just gonna. We should have a link there directly to do the same. To be honest, uh, let's just quickly have a look at that address to see what they did with it. I'm curious. It's a pretty
And you're
large amount of
checking
white tokens.
you're checking wallet profiler for token again, right?
Yep, that's right. So we should really have a link to it right here, so you can sort of click through the hops that they do. For now, I had to sort of bring it up again. Yeah, okay, it's just sitting there. So they're just hodling. Maybe we should label this address actually like
Top
largest
white
largest
top white
white,
farmer or whatever.
yeah,
Largest white ape
investor. Yeah.
investor, sure. It's a more appropriate term.
Well, it's not a farmer, right? It's
Yeah.
literally just purchasing tokens.
Well, they did ape in pretty heavily to
Okay,
get.
biggest white ape, great white ape.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Cool.
let's move on to the final kind of section here, which is pulling up the campfire here, the Dex trades
Oh yeah,
dashboard,
let's do it.
and yeah, just
Do you have
enjoying
it here?
watching
Yeah.
the transactions roll by.
Yeah. So this is in beta. Boom. Someone buying Badger. Let's see. Flash loan. Live flash
Ooh.
loan.
Were
Interesting.
they are they arbitraging or what?
I guess so. I have to admit I do find it a bit difficult to break down what goes on in these very complex transactions. There are better people than me at doing that, but I would guess so. So I yeah. There's also this what's it called? ETHTX or something where you can I think it's ethtx.info. Oh, sorry. There we go. Let's see. I don't know if that's going to help us.
I've actually
Um,
never seen this before.
yeah, it might account balance. Okay, I think this just breaks it down even more. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
This
just
is
even more
even more
complicated.
confusing.
It would be nice. I think I've spoken to a couple of people who are making sort of ways to parse these complex transactions so it's more readable. But I would imagine they're just okay. Wait, so I mean, it looks kind of like they are flash loaning this and then somehow netting 4.5. So they're netting like 0.4 BTC, or that's pretty big if so. Or maybe Etherscan just pulls out some of the stuff that happens down here, not all of it. So it was this 0x0C. I mean, it looks to me like they're profiting about this amount of
Yeah,
BTC,
I agree with that. Yeah, so
right?
if you go to the top, like the
Like
from of a
10K.
lending pool, they've
Yeah.
borrowed 4.16 WBTC.
Yeah,
Then they've done some
dump that into
shenanigans
sushi.
on SushiSwap, Uniswap, and then they repay their loan in that third from final transaction
Exactly.
or
Yeah,
fourth from final
there you go. Right,
transaction.
this one.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then they walk away with
and
zero
then they
point
pocket this.
three
Yeah,
eight.
10K,
That's
47
not a
seconds
bad
ago.
flash loan.
So we see someone just like pocketing $10,000 worth of BTC on air, live in our dashboard.
You heard it
That's
here
pretty cool.
first, ladies and
You heard
gentlemen.
it here first. I mean, you could also look into this address, right? If you wanted to, you could pull this guy up in a wallet profiler and understand what they're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
you wanna dump that address in the chat real quick,
sure.
so anyone can kind of poke around on it.
Did that work? Or
Yeah.
okay. Uh, CDP creator. Huh. Okay. Uh, interesting. They seem to be interacting with Uniswap, which makes sense. Wrapped Ether, which also makes sense. And Uniswap. And then there's a bunch of unknown ones. So you can also break this down and look at. Oh, where was this? Okay. Uh, okay, token billionaire. I don't think there's actually a billionaire. This is probably some kind of data quality issue because there are some small coins that the prices get messed up, and so we overestimate the holdings. Yeah, it's this DEX token governance. This is a bug I spotted earlier today, which we're gonna fix very soon. Um, Actually, I think we already have fixed it. It's just that the labels have not been updated yet. But yeah, so this is kind of interesting. One thing I want to do later is to cluster these different front runners and flash bots and so on, so that it's easier to see when certain contracts are owned by the same caller, for example.
Right.
Um, but so it'd be nice to see like, oh yeah, that's front runner ABC, versus front runner DVC, or
Yeah.
flash trader, not front runner. But yeah, so you can get kind of an overview of when they were, like when they've been active, um, and which other contracts it's been interacting with, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's that. We should have, of course, we should have a link to the wallet profiler, or even have like a transaction profiler, to be honest, here. But this is still in alpha, so I should also mention we added more dexes here. I think last time we showed this dashboard, it only had SushiSwap and Uniswap. Now we have like 0x balancer, uh,
0x is likely to
perf.
just be through matcha, is that right?
Yeah, it sometimes matcha, but it could also be I think token lawn, um,
Or Paraswap, it looks like.
Paraswap. It looks like yeah. So it could be different ones. Like 0x is one of those projects that is actually used by a lot of other projects. So uh, yeah, it could actually be many different front ends that you're interacting with when you see 0x.
Right. Not to put you on the hot seat here. What happens if someone uses a an aggregator, like 1inch, and it's routing through multiple dexes? How would that show up here?
So the way it would show up is you would actually see it as multiple transactions, because what we show here is one line per token transfer. So if you have many token transfers in one transaction, they will show up as several lines.
Okay.
And I don't really see another way to do that. You could just do the very first incoming and then outgoing, but you'd sort of miss the stuff that goes on in between.
Yeah.
But that's how it's set up now. So if you see a very complex one, there's a chance that you'll see kind of like at least roughly the same value uh, on multiple rows, and that's kind of just the same transaction. It's a part of the same transaction where you route it through different tokens and token
Got it.
transfers.
So that I guess it just disappeared. But there was one where it's like kind of two or Jeek, which is I guess fairly obscure. but it was trading into SFI and then SFI into wrapped ether, and so it was probably just routing it through this um, whatever better liquidity pool.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, I
So
think.
this
Oh,
might also, sorry, just gonna say maybe this one
no
here as
worries.
well. The this SUSD you saw, that's another example of curve, and it went through a couple of other dexes as well. So you could actually see that in the dashboard.
Perfect. All right. Well, now I think it's a good time for us to wrap things up. Any final parting words?
Not really. I would say, it's been a great year for us at Nansen. Actually, the first year in existence for Nansen, 2020. I think I'm very excited about next year because we're going to roll out some really, really cool features in the pretty short term. So even the first quarter of the year is going to be very cool. And then we do still have a lot of features that are kind of, being tested internally, and they're very near being ready for mainstream usage to Nansen customers. Everything from the smart alerts, which has been uh, undergoing testing for a while now, and some customers are actually using it, to the DEX trades that we just looked at, and a bunch of other dashboards and so on. So yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting next year, and I'm looking forward to having all of our Nansen customers come along on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. As always, if you have any questions throughout the week, feel free to ping us on Discord or on Twitter or anywhere really. We're happy to answer. And thanks, as always, for joining us on this exploration and journey.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Bye bye.
Happy New Year, everyone.